Hey guys, welcome. If I can get set up here, we will dive on in. Right. No problem. Hello, hello.
You went to class yesterday?
Yes, Monday through Thursday.
Okay, wow. Alright.
We'll get them set up here in person. Give us a minute and then we will dive in tonight. we'll kick off here at in 2 minutes, just waiting for a couple more people to roll in here in person and get the headshots set up, and then we will be kicking off. So give us 2 more minutes and then we'll get going. Okay. Let's go ahead and kick it off tonight with how we will be kicking off class most nights. What did we learn yesterday? What's that? Categorizing. Yeah, what did we categorize? Frameworks, kind of. What did we focus in on? Yeah, so starting to think about, all right, there are a lot of features in a car, right? There are a lot of features in any project that we might kick off. So how do we go about approaching that? How do we start exploring requirements for the client? Go ahead. Yeah, we learned about wireframing, and wireframing is what we'll be spending on some time tonight. What else did we learn yesterday? Mockups. I'm seeing in the Zoom chat as well. And then following mockups, yep, you got it. Is prototypes, right? So it's a 3-step process. We do our wireframes first. That's what we're going to be practicing tonight. Then we move on to our mockups. Mockups are more design oriented, right? That's a little bit more color, a little bit more photos. And then sometimes we finish with a prototype before we dive into our code, which is more interactive, right? We also learned about the software development lifecycle, the SDLC, and how that has 7 phases in it, right? Where we start with our planning, we move into design, and then only at the 4th step do we actually get into implementation. So that's what we'll be spending the most of our time on throughout this course. But there is more to software than just writing the code, right? And we go into testing, we go into infrastructure and deployment, and then we kind of complete the cycle and we started moving on from there. We also learned a little bit, Tara, thank you, about different job titles, right? About how there are a lot of different jobs you guys will be qualified for after this program, and there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. Seeing the overlap between those titles, knowing kind of what you can get into after this program can be helpful throughout the course of it. Also learned errors are our friend. Yes, when we are getting an error message, it's frustrating, but it's not just, hey, we have an error, let's move on. That error is trying to tell you where the error is, right? Where you can focus in, how you can go ahead and fix that error. And if you have a second error after that error, how we pause and we take a moment and we say, hey, let's say, yes, we solved this one error, we are moving on. And let's celebrate that win that we got one thing fixed before we move on to the next thing. We also learned about the 20-20-20 rule, right? Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. That's just taking care of our physical health, our eye health, realizing that looking at a screen for hours on end isn't always a good thing. So getting a little bit more of eye relief and eye strain, reducing that as much as possible. We learned about rubber ducking, right? That practice of sometimes when we run into an issue, we don't know how to solve the issue because we haven't taken a moment to step back and say, hey, can I articulate what my problem is? Sometimes we just get so narrow-minded on trying to fix that issue that if we take a moment and try to articulate what that problem is, it makes it much easier to actually go ahead and solve it. Plus, it gives us a moment to take a step back and realize, take a break and say, hey, sometimes talking through this issue, actually verbalizing it and articulating it can help us get to the solution a little bit quicker. Anything else from yesterday? Imposter syndrome, and that is what your first required project, your homework assignment will be on. Imposter syndrome is that feeling of not fitting in, right? That feeling like you don't belong, feeling that you are an imposter among your other students. So when you're feeling that, reach out to us on Slack, reach out to us on one-on-one. We are pretty much pros at breaking that imposter syndrome at this point, right? Starting to look at your accomplishments, starting to look at what you've accomplished so far in this course. And that will start to build as you go throughout the program, not only sometimes the feeling of the imposter syndrome, but more techniques, more fuel to the fire to fight that imposter syndrome as it goes. But feel free to reach out for one-on-ones on that. If you are feeling that imposter syndrome, that is a normal feeling. We can help you fight that. Anything else from yesterday? Thinking like an engineer. Yeah. So what does it mean to think like an engineer? It's kind of that moment of realizing that things have to be broken down, right? When we're looking at this project, the project may feel insurmountable, but thinking like an engineer means thinking about the little pieces, right? Think about where you would start. Sometimes you don't know how to get to the end until you start working on the things at the beginning and things fall into place there. So thinking like an engineer just means taking a big problem and breaking it down into small solvable pieces. And that's something that over time throughout the projects, you'll kind of see how we do it in class, and that will make your homework much easier to accomplish as well. Anything else from yesterday? Reverse engineering, right? That notion of sometimes we have our full project and we need to extract the concepts out of it. And that's that level of understanding that we're trying to get to for not only all of our class projects, but also our homeworks. It's kind of weird when you're doing your homework and you have it done and you're like, all right, I'm done, right? I turned it in, I got my grade, I'm finished. And for 99% of your education, that probably has always been the standard of, I finished the homework assignment, I think I'm done and I turned it in, I move on to the next thing. Well, that's not quite enough when we're learning to code, right? And it doesn't matter if you're in a boot camp or you're doing a self-paced program or you're doing computer science in a traditional 4-year college education setting, we have to get to that level of understanding of just because the computer can run the code doesn't mean that we're necessarily done with the code. So what level of do we understand these concepts? Can we take our assignment and turn to a fellow student or turn to a family member or come to me and say, hey, this is the code, look, this is what it's doing, but I also understand it. I can also explain through line by line what that code is doing. That's something that as we start writing more code, obviously the concepts will come with it. But if you feel like you're struggling with that level of understanding, reach out, have the one-on-one, shoot me a Slack message. We'll be learning about inline comments where you can actually leave yourself notes in your code. And sometimes that's the best way to get to that level of understanding as well. Anything else from yesterday? Any light bulb moments? Anything that we want to celebrate? Anything that clicked yesterday that made sense? Okay, so let's switch into part 2 of our stand-up. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so today we are going to start out with a little Mac 101. So if you are someone who is a Mac expert or is comfortable with the Mac, I apologize. This may be a little slower than usual for you. But we're going to go over some of your fellow students may not have used a Mac before, may have been coming from Windows, may not be comfortable on a laptop. That's all okay. So we're going to go over some Mac basics there. That should only take us about 10 or 15 minutes. I hope there's at least one tip that you're going to learn throughout this that you may not have known before. And there may be multiple things that you're going to learn. So we're going to start class off with Mac 101. We're going to spend a little bit of time on project management. Now, you may be thinking, why project management, right? Well, it turns out when we're thinking like an engineer, there are a lot of different components that we need to be able to keep track of throughout the course of working on a project. And the most common method for doing that in the workplace, at least for software projects, is called Agile, A-G-I-L-E, Agile methodology. And oftentimes that uses a methodology or a technique called Kanban. So we're going to learn about Agile project management. We're going to learn about Kanban, and we're going to introduce you to a software called Trello. If you already have a Trello account, that's great. If you don't, it's completely free to sign up. We won't be really enforcing Trello throughout the course of the project, but if you are someone who likes organization, likes kind of keeping track of things digitally, Trello is a great tool for you. So with that said, there are some students that I'm thinking of in particular who may be sitting to my right who did not use Trello, but had experience with other project management tools. That's also totally fine. Asana is a very popular one. Monday.com is one. I think Monday is pretty pricey if your employer isn't paying for it. And then another very popular one is called Jira, J-I-R-A. Jira is actually owned by a company called Atlassian, and Atlassian bought Trello about 2 or 3 years ago. So if you have another project management software that you use that you want to include me in, just so as you start working on your capstone, or if you're tracking your progress throughout the course through that project management tool, feel free to invite me. But we're going to go over Trello a little bit tonight, just learning a little bit about project management and the whole Kanban system. Like I said, introducing you to the tools, not a requirement that you use Trello throughout the course, but may help you throughout your organization. We will probably get up to break time at that point. If we don't, we will keep going. We're going to break you up both virtually and in person into those groups that we talked about yesterday. So everyone is going to get assigned a part of the car. We're going to have 5 different groups. We'll probably have 2 or 3 in person and then 2 or 3 virtually as well. We're going to learn a little bit about Zoom whiteboards, so you guys can organize your wireframes. And then depending on where we're at in class, we'll save the last about 30 minutes of class or so for learning a little bit about Figma. You guys are going to get access to an education license, which unlocks the paid features of Figma. Really cool that they offer education kind of trials. The real reason is they want to get you hooked on learning the tool in school, so that when you graduate and you're in the workplace and they go, hey, we need this wireframe or this mock-up, that you go, oh, I use Figma in school. I also want to use that in the workplace and pay for a license. So we're going to set up your Figma accounts. We're going to learn a little bit about Figma. We're going to introduce you to Bootstrap components. And then you guys are going to go back into your groups and play around with getting a mock-up completed. Hey, we finished our wireframes. We've got an idea of what our car components should look like. And then throughout OpenHack tomorrow, if you want to continue working on your mock-ups together and start practicing with Figma a little bit more, that's totally fine. If you don't, that's also fine. The point of OpenHack tomorrow is to socialize, right? Meet fellow developers, get involved in that local Syracuse development community. So 5:45 tomorrow, not 5:30 as usual, but 5:45. You should be at Common Space downtown. The address is 251 East Jefferson Street, I believe. If you just do a search, 351, thank you, 351. If you just Google Common Space work, and if you RSVP to the meetup, and there will also be a door code that I will send out to you guys tomorrow in Slack. So make sure that you've got Slack either installed on your phone or you've got your computer at the ready. 351 South Warren Street. You'll enter the door code on this like keypad curved camera looking thing. You can enter the door code there. When you walk in, there will be elevators on your left and stairs right behind it. You're headed up to the 2nd floor. Once you're there, you will the elevator and the stairs let you out at this area. We will be there waiting for you 5:45. I'll give you a quick tour. We'll give you a little background on Common Space and the amenities that it has. And then there is a second homework assignment for this weekend to fill out by Sunday at 11:59, right before midnight. It is only 5 questions. It will take, if it takes you more than 5 minutes, there's something wrong there. Trust me, it's very quick. It is multiple choice. We will use that information and then follow up sometime next week about Common Space memberships, who's eligible for them, the pricing information, all of that stuff. So OpenHack doesn't start until 6. Get there at 5:45. We'll give you a quick tour. You'll get to see the venue. And then we'll kick off OpenHack at 6 with all the fellow community members. Any questions about where we're headed, things I just went over? Questions about OpenHack? Okay, so for those who are in person and who would like to get a headshot taken, if you notice, Karen is over in the corner. Karen probably met at kickoff. TA, program manager, professional photographer on the side. If you notice that station is open and you would like a headshot taken, just go over there. You won't be missing too much of class. You'll still be able to hear me. So station is open. Feel free to wander over there, get your picture taken if you would like. We will post the photos in Google Drive, and then you are welcome to do with them whatever as you please. There is no pressure. It is not a requirement, but take advantage of it while Karen is here. Let me switch a couple things over here. Yes. So what you should have installed are Zoom. You should have your Canvas account set up. You should have Slack set up and downloaded. You should have VS Code. If you don't have VS Code downloaded yet, we will be diving into that on Monday. And then Figma will be creating accounts tonight. Did I miss anything? Does that sound like everything we've got set up? Canvas, Zoom, VS Code, which we'll dive into on Monday. I think that's everything. Okay. So we are going to dive into Mac 101 a little bit here. So first things first, if you are coming from a Windows computer, you may be familiar with scrolling on like the right side of a trackpad. The trackpad on the Mac, you may have noticed, is ginormous. And it is multi-touch. So the same gestures that you can use on your phone, you can usually use on the Mac. The exception to that is scrolling. On your phone, you're used to just flicking up or down. On your Mac, take 2 fingers. You may need to separate them out just a little bit. And then if you are in an application that can scroll, make sure your window is in the scrollable area. And then you can use 2 fingers to scroll up or down. I am someone who am old school. For me, it makes sense if you take your fingers and you move them towards the top of the trackpad, that the page should scroll down. That is actually the default of what is on the Mac. So if you are scrolling and you find that the scrolling direction is opposite what you want it to be, you can adjust that setting. So if you go to Apple and you go down to System Preferences, at the very top left, go down to System Preferences. And from there, you may have the left sidebar if you've updated your operating system. If you haven't, you will have rows across. Either way, it should be very similar. You're looking for the word trackpad. When you click on that, that will bring you into the trackpad settings. If you do not have this left column and instead have rows of icons, take some time this weekend to update your operating system. It will take about an hour-ish to download and about a half hour-ish to install. I do not recommend doing it on the guest Wi-Fi network here at Lemoyne, but try and get that operating system updated. It will prevent issues down the road. From there, you can see that there are a couple options in here, one of which is tap to click. So if you are someone who doesn't like pressing down on the trackpad and would like a lighter just tap of the trackpad in order to click, you can go ahead and toggle that on right here. You will also find that under the scroll and zoom section, if it's not here, it's a tab up at the top of your window. You can go to scroll and zoom and see I have natural scrolling on, which means it is inverted from whatever the default is. If it doesn't matter to me, however you like to push on your trackpad to scroll, but scrolling is definitely something that you'll want to be comfortable with. So if you want to adjust that setting, you totally can. There is also one other setting in point and click. There is something that says force click and haptic feedback. So the trackpad not only knows when you have multiple fingers on the trackpad, it also knows how hard you're pressing down on the trackpad. So if you are someone who has been in an application and has accidentally pressed too hard and made of course, it's not going to let me give you a good example of that. If you are in an application and press a little too hard on the trackpad. Oh, it's not going to give me an example. Yeah, I may have actually turned it off because it drives me nuts.
The long press, which pulls up lookup and other stuff. Oh, here we go. Call it a force click now. So if you are in an application and push really hard down on a word on your trackpad, you'll see this little pop-up, and it will like completely your trackpad will like vibrate more than usual. That drives me nuts and gets in my way all the time, because all I'm trying to do is click and it thinks I'm like really aggressively going at my trackpad. So if that bothers you, what you can do is go over to your settings, and under look up and data detectors, you can change that from force click to off if you want. If you're someone who likes to look up words all the time and that's something that you want to leave on, that's totally fine. So just a couple options for you on your trackpad. But if you are having issues clicking on something, chances are it might be this lookup and data detector, because you're pushing down a little bit too hard on the trackpad. Any questions on that? The name of the mouse that I recommend is the Logitech MX3. I think it's called the Master. I will say that there is the 3 and the 3S, and there's also the 2 and the 2S. If you can find the 2S, 3, or 3S on sale, they are all almost identical, and you won't notice any major differences between them. So you can save like $30 if you get the slightly older model. That's totally fine. The other thing is it does not need to be specific to the Mac. Any of the MX product line will be compatible with the Mac. And you don't need the little dongle thing that you plug into the side of the computer with that mouse in particular. If you look at the price of that mouse and you go, holy hell, Max, what are you thinking? I can't afford a mouse that expensive. That is totally fine. The only thing that I would recommend, you can get a great $20 or $30 mouse. I really like Logitech. Clearly doesn't have to be Logitech specific. What you want to look for is make sure that it is a Bluetooth mouse. If it says Bluetooth in the product name or in the product description, that means you don't need to take up one of the ports on your computer. You can pair it directly with the with a Mac, and you don't need to have like the additional thing plugged in. Your laptop has 2 USB-C ports and then the charger that comes with it. Oftentimes those mouse dongles, those wireless receivers, are USB-A, they are not USB-C, and then you have a giant thing hanging out of the side of your computer to just get your mouse to work. So you can avoid all of that if you get a Bluetooth mouse. It is worth the extra $5 or $10 to get a Bluetooth model as opposed to one that requires the little plug-in dongle thing. Yes, that is the technical term, the little plug-in dongle thing. Any questions on the mouse or anything so far? MX Master. Can you drop a link to that in chat, Susanna? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not it. That's the ergonomic one. That's the MX vertical. If you're curious, both TAs have 2 different Logitech models. Karen has the model that I recommend, and Exona has the vertical one, which is supposed to be more ergonomic. I can't personally attest to that one, but there is something about putting your hand on the mouse and just feeling it move. I'm telling you, it's the weirdest thing. I buy everything online. A mouse is the only thing that I won't buy online. Like I want to be able to feel it before I buy it. And especially with the Master and probably with that one as well, you don't realize like how a mouse can feel until you actually put your hand on it. So it sounds really weird, but I will stop being a salesperson for Logitech products. What's that?
It's hard to click on it when you're like trying to like grab a file and like down or like drags down.
So like
I don't.
throughout class, like when I teach in person, I use the trackpad on my Mac. I have no problems with it. I don't travel with an external mouse, but it is a very specific thing. Some people are like refuse to touch the trackpad, and no matter where they go with their laptop, they bring a mouse with them. No shame in that. Like I said, I have no problem using the trackpad, but when I'm sitting at my desk, I actually have 2 external monitors and then use a mouse on my desk. And the mouse is the one that Karen has. So if you want to try it, but not if it's Bluetooth. So both this one and the one Karen have are Bluetooth models, so you don't need the little plug-in dongle thing. Yeah, it sounds, there's a little like thumb rest on the side of it, and then it's like curved. So if you guys are curious and want to come up and like put your hand on it, you're welcome to. And that's totally fine too, right? It's all that really matters, right? Like if it works for you, that's fine. That is really weird. I don't use the vertical one.
Like a little bit.
That one has a little thumb rest on it. And there's actually a button. So if you push down on your thumb, it will bring you into expose mode or mission control, which I'm going to show in a second anyway. It's such a weird personal thing. And some people are like, screw your $100 mice. I like the $30 option. Like, that's totally fine too.
Thanks for the wishes, right? Like if you're in an office setting, like it helps with your wrist so it doesn't get cramped.
It is a personal preference. I'm not going to shame anyone on their mice preference.
Scared, but you gotta use it. After like a week, you're good to go.
I also, for 5 or 6 years, typed on a split keyboard, and that's something, yeah. But it's 2 like completely separate pieces. And so that's really hard for people to get used to, because if they type a certain, like if they type the Y with their left hand, you like literally hit the desk and you're like, wait, no, that's this finger. So, okay. Yeah, and don't feel obligated to go with the model that I recommend. There are a lot of great mice options out there. And your stipend cards, we did get ordered, I think yesterday. So you'll have funds available sometime in the middle of May. So if you want to hold off on buying that hardware, we can't do reimbursements. So if you do want to hold off and get that, have your first purchase be a mouse, that's totally fine. Okay. With all of that said, you may have noticed that down at the bottom of the screen is your dock. Your dock is kind of like your start bar on Windows. So it's broken up into 3 different sections. The icons over on this first section on the left-hand side are what we call pinned or stored in the dock. So these are applications where no matter if it's open or not, it's always going to be in the dock. The next section is applications that you have open or have used recently that are not stored in your dock. And then the final section is your kind of files and trash can. So one thing that I really like is, instead of using the Launchpad that is part of the dock, what I like to do is have my applications folder accessible down here. So to do that, I go to Finder, I go to my applications folder, and I click and drag that down into the dock. From there, now when I click to open my applications, I have access to all of them, whether or not they're in the dock or not. You don't have to do that. Again, this is all personal preference. However you want to set it up is totally fine. One thing you may be wondering is, hey, if I have an item in my doc, let's say Pages, right, which is just a word processing system. What if I want to keep that in my doc, whether or not I have it open or not? You can either right click, 2 fingers, just like you would use to scroll, but you use 2 fingers to push down on the trackpad. That's the equivalent of a right click. If you right click on that icon, you can go up to options and over to keep in doc. If you click on that, you will notice that now that is stored in my doc. And if I quit out of that application, you'll see that it's still stored there. The other way of doing that, if there are icons that you don't want in your doc, if you're like, I don't use this application, get it out of here, you can right click on that again, 2 fingers on the trackpad, go up to options and go to remove from doc, and you will notice that has now disappeared. There are other ways of removing items from your doc. You can also grab the icon and just drag it out until it says the word remove, and that will also remove that icon. Now, you may say, well, Max, why does your doc disappear? It's really annoying that that doc is always on the bottom part of the screen. Well, that is another thing that you can adjust in system preferences or system settings, depending on what operating system you have. If you go into system settings and find the word desktop and dock, you can adjust where the position is on the screen. So you can actually make your dock show up on the left side or the right side. I don't recommend adjusting that based off of having 2 monitors and having to go switch between both of them. We'll be diving into your 2 monitor setup in week 3 if you haven't already played around with it, because obviously for people who are in person, you don't have your monitors with you. So however, if you would like this dock at the bottom of the screen to only show up when you put your mouse down at the bottom, there is an option here that says automatically hide and show the dock. You want to just turn that to on, and then your dock will disappear on you unless you put your mouse down at the bottom of the screen. Any questions on that? Okay. Now, you may notice that there are these tiny little dots at the bottom of some of the applications, but not at others. So you can see my system settings, I don't have a dot under, but under Zoom and Slack, I do. This application, this dot at the bottom, means the application is actually running. So on Windows, when you hit the close button out of a window, that application closes, right? It's gone, it's out of here, you don't have to worry about it. Well, on the Mac, there is a difference between closing the window and quitting the application. When you guys quit the application, that is kind of like force quitting it on your phone, right? When you swipe your app on your phone, that is actually quitting out of the application as opposed to just closing the window, which may still leave it running in the background. So if I open up VS Code here, you can see that I can have multiple windows open. But if I close out of both of those windows, down in my dock, I still have that dot down there. That means VS Code is running in the background, but has not been quit out of. In order to fully quit out of something, there are 2 ways of doing it. You can either hit Command Q, and you'll notice that almost any keyboard shortcut that works on Windows with Control and whatever is the equivalent on the Mac, but with Command. So instead of Control C to copy, it's Command C to copy. To quit the application, you can either hit Command and Q, and you'll notice that that makes the dot at the bottom disappear, or you can go up to the top and whatever your current active window is will show up in the top left. So right now, because my foremost window is my VS Code, it says Code. And if I switch over to Chrome, you'll see that it says Chrome. So to quit out of the application and close all of the windows with it, you can go either Command Q or click on the name in the top left in the menu bar, drop down to the quit option here, and you'll notice that that makes the dot in the dock disappear. Yes. So hitting the red dot, the X in the top left is called closing. That's closing the window, but you still have the application running in the background. Not quite. It's similar. You can also minimize an application, but that still has the window open. So you can basically be running something in the background of your Mac without having any of the windows open. Move it a break. Move it a break. Okay, so if you are running into an issue and you're like, this application just is not working, or it's being funky, or you need to just basically you need to quit out of that application either with Command Q or go up to the top and down to the quit. So just keep in mind that quit and close on Windows are synonymous. On the Mac, quit and close are not the same. Close means hit the X button on the window. Quit means get rid of the application entirely, go up to Chrome and then down to quit. Now in the fifth cohort of this, I've never had to force quit out of an application, but the equivalent of command Control Alt Delete on the Mac is Control Command Escape. And that is like if you get not responding, if you get what we call the beach ball or the pinwheel, basically that infinite spinning thing, and you're trying to quit and it just is fighting you and does not want to listen to you. Sorry, I said the wrong command. It's Command Option Escape. That will bring up the force quit window, and that is your like end task, your kill it, your get it, you know, really tell this like application that you are forced to quit out. You can also get to that with the Apple menu up at the top and then drop down to force quit. And that will also pop up the same window, and then you just click on one and hit force quit. Okay. This is where we cross the line from Mac 101 to Mac 201. We can also use what we call virtual desktops, right? So if we are realizing, hey, all of these windows are open and I want to separate these out. Maybe I want to have my code in one space and I want to have my Chrome window or my Zoom window in another. If you take 3 fingers, put them on your trackpad kind of in the center and swipe up, you will get into what is called mission control. Now, mission control does show you all of the windows that you have open. So that can be a quick way. If you have multiple windows open and want to switch between them, you can swipe up with 3 fingers, lift your hand up off the trackpad, click on another window if you have it open, and it will switch you between both of them. So to test that, have 2 windows open, maybe open a Finder window and have Zoom open, or a Chrome window open, or Safari. Swipe up with 3 fingers, and that kind of gives you what they call the mission control view, right? The ability to see all your windows that you have open. If anyone is struggling with this in person or needs help, drop a note in the Zoom chat or raise your hand and we'll come over to you. Does anyone else need a headshot that did not get one? Okay, now we get into the more fun space of, okay, what if I want to have a different group of windows open? Well, up in the top right here, you might need to put your mouse in the top right corner. You'll see there's a little plus here. If you click on that plus, it is going to make something that says desktop 2. You can now take any of the windows that you have open and drag it to that desktop. If you click on that desktop, you will see the only thing that I have open in here is Chrome. You can swipe back up with 3 fingers, go back over to desktop 1, and now it's like you have 2 different virtual desktops that you're switching between. Here's the really cool part. You don't have to swipe up with 3 fingers and manually switch between the 2 of them. You can use 3 fingers and swipe to the left or right and virtually switch between those 2 desktops. So I take my 3 fingers, I swipe over, I get to my one desktop. I take 3 fingers, I swipe over in the opposite direction, and I get to the first virtual desktop. Anyone need help with that? These are all optional things. If you're like, this virtual desktops thing confuses the crap out of me, I like everything all in one, that's totally fine. If you are someone who is like, I like to be organized, I'm going to have my VS Code in this one, I'm going to have my browser in this one, I'm going to have my Zoom in another, that's also totally fine. Eva.
How do you lock the order of the windows when you're in the, what is that called? When you do the 3 swipes up and you've got you can order them. And then when you scroll left to right, you can do that. But sometimes if you open some apps, it changes the order on you. And I think there's
Yeah,
one to
so
lock it, but I don't know. I don't remember what it is.
it will open in whatever whatever desktop you had it in last. And if you want to reorder the desktops, if you want this one to be first, you just click and drag it over into the first spot.
Yeah, but then there's a way to lock it so it doesn't change.
Not that
I
I'm
just-
aware of.
Okay, there is, but I don't remember what it was because I did it once and now I can't remember. So it's like, but whatever, just ignore me.
Normally by default, it will open in whatever virtual desktop it was in last. Okay. Maybe it's something in here, Eva, of automatically rearrange spaces based off of most recent use or group windows by application.
Maybe I can look around later.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. Anyone have questions so far? Someone learned something new at this point.
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
Thank you so much for the tutorial. When I go into Finder, how do I create new folders so that I can start organizing my stuff?
Yep.
It's a little
We're gonna
different.
We'll dive into that a little bit more on Monday's class because we're going to be setting up our code folder for the first time. But in answer to your question, if you click on Finder, that's going to pop open a new window for you. You're going to use your right click. So 2 fingers and click in, and that should give you the option for, let me just switch my view here.
Nope, it honestly, it did. And I don't see why I didn't see that before. I feel kind of slow now, but thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Come on, camera, follow me. Okay. And we'll be diving into Finder a little bit more. One thing that I'll show you is up here in the top right-ish, you'll see like 4 rectangles together. I personally cannot stand the icon view. I think there is a much more powerful view you can use, which is this columns view. That columns view also gives you, when you open a folder, it kind of lets you see what items are inside that folder. So I really like that columns view. You'll see me throughout class use that instead of icons. Again, personal preference. If you don't like it, if you like the icons more or any of these other settings, that's totally fine. I will judge you if you use gallery view, but you know, everyone has their own preferences. So just something to consider that you can change the views up there. Okay, virtual desktops now. Again, for judging you, I hate the full screen mode on the Mac. The reason why I hate the full screen mode on the Mac is it doesn't make it easy for you to go expand the entire window and have another window open as well. So what you will notice is if you are up here and you hit this green icon, it actually put you in another virtual desktop without you even realizing it. And if you take your 3 fingers and swipe up, you will now see that Google Chrome is in full screen mode between desktop 1 and desktop 2. So if I'm down in Google Chrome and I'm like, oh, I want a Finder window, and I still want my Chrome to be open in full screen and fully maximized, when I click on that, it dumps me out onto desktop 1. And I'm like, where the fuck am I now? Right? Well, I moved over, and if I go into full screen mode on this, now that's in yet another virtual desktop. So if I swipe over, I can get to my Chrome. But now if I want to have 2 windows open, you can, but it's a pain in the freaking ass. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just, I don't know, take a cue out of Windows book and take the top and just drag it to the top of the screen and it went full screen? Or drag it to the left side of the screen and have it snap to the left side of the screen. So we're going to install an application called Rectangle. If you like full screen mode, if you are comfortable on the Mac, nothing against you using it. But what this application Rectangle allows you to do is to grab this window, and if I drag it over to the left half of my screen, you notice how it resizes now and it's just on the left half. And if I take it and I drag it on the right side of the screen, oops, and don't have multiple monitors running, it snaps over to the right half. And if I take it and I drag it all the way up to the top, it will snap into that full window size without actually going into full screen mode, which means that if I click into Finder, I can actually have multiple things open while still having this fully maximized. This is optional if you are like, nope, virtual desktops and full screen mode makes total sense to me, that's fine. There is a way to have 2 applications open in full screen mode, which is if you hover over this full screen, you can see it says tile to left and tile to right. This is the only feature of Mac OS that I cannot stand and I really like snapping on. So that's saying a lot because I know a lot of Mac OS features. I really love the Mac. I just cannot stand the full screen mode. So if you are someone who likes the snapping and you want to be able to drag it up to the top or the left or the right and have 2 things open without having to use Apple's snapping, if you just do a Google search for Rectangle app, or if you happen to have the daily outline open, I have a link to Rectangle right here. This is a free application. The website's rectangleapp.com. You can go ahead and download and install this. I do think it takes system preferences or system settings privacy permissions, just like Zoom does. But if you want to download this, this is what allows me to drag windows to the left side or the right side or the top and just have it resize the window to that. I know this is a little confusing. This just, to me, makes a lot more sense. But like I said, if you're someone who likes the full screen mode and leans into using the virtual desktops, that's also totally fine. What was your preference?
Oh, I love it. I use it all the time. I would literally divide my big screen and my computer to 4 sections.
That's what I do.
VS Code, notes, you talking, and then something else, whatever we had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. And I'm like, this is not enough. So, when we get that combo, like after you download something.
Yep.
Like, if you move it with the icon to the folder, does it automatically move to applications through that?
Yes. Yes. Give everyone just a minute to download Rectangle if you want, and make sure you can actually snap once you get the Rectangle app open. If you need help, let me know. You just drag and drop it from the icon into applications.
Okay. Yes. And then you have your.
I feel like This is where like, this is Apple blasphemy.
Yeah.
There was only one that I know of that couldn't make it. Yeah. One of the weeks that you're a TA, just we'll reoffer it and go from there. Yeah. 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 Does anyone else need help? Yeah. Okay, so a DMG is a virtual disk image. And so when you click on it to open it, this is how you install it. So you take Rectangle, you drag it over to the applications folder. And then from there, you can close this, head to the applications folder and pop it open.
Now there has to be a place. I'm a big why guy, so I'm gonna be asking you why those are the way they're gonna lie.
So the disk image dates all the way back to the CD days, where in order to install an application, you would literally put the CD in the computer
Yes.
and it would open up the disk.
Yeah.
Then you drag it over to applications, which is like copying it onto your computer. That's the actual installing of it. And then to open it, you don't want to open the copy of it that's on the CD. You want to open the copy of it that you just put on your computer in applications.
So why didn't Mac stick with that instead of doing what Windows did and actually have a whole thing for that?
Go ahead and give me your password there.
See, I'm
Totally
the
fine.
weird person that you're like, I hate full screen.
I'm totally fine with, I don't know what's.
Shut up.
And I,
No, the answer for that is, there are some applications, I think like Zoom, that still have an installer. That you would continue, and it does it all for you. There are some security concerns with either method. One is supposed to be more secure, one's supposed to be easier, right? So this method is supposed to be easier because you don't have to hit the continue button a bunch of times. Why are there two install methods instead of Apple just forcing everyone to use one? Now that's a question I don't have an answer for.
Yeah, with- I don't care if you tell me it's arbitrary.
Okay, so this is now installed. So if you grab your window and kind of flick it over to the left and then grab it and hold it up at the top. But don't do it aggressively, then it will go into full screen.
Okay.
Well, it will maximize the window without going into full screen.
Well, I did the same thing because I got one as well. Okay, now why does it keep opening?
So
Is it because I had two fingers on?
you had two fingers, yep. So if we pop this open and we can take this and drag it over to the left and then take this and drag it over to the right, I was in the corner, then it will split it between the two.
oh, yeah.
Somewhere.
Sometimes, oh, there you go. And now you can install it and then you close it from there now and go to your applications folder to open it. You have a question? Okay,
Awesome, I appreciate you.
no problem. That's why we're here. Everyone good over here? Anyone need help? Does anyone remotely need help? Okay, asthma. So you have it downloaded, but it's not opening. So what you should do is if we go to the Rectangle app, we're going to go to Rectangle, we're going to hit the download button. That download is what is called a disk image or a DMG. When you pop that open, this is one of two ways of installing an application on your Mac. So you're going to take Rectangle and you're going to drag and drop it into applications. If you have already done that and have a pop-up here, you can just hit replace. Now it is very tempting where all you're here to just double click on it and you would think that it would work. But this is the equivalent of like running the copy of it that's on a virtual CD. So instead of launching it from here, we actually want to close this window. And we're going to go to Finder down at the bottom and over to Applications. And in this list under R, you should see rectangle. Now, when you double click on it from here, it's going to send you to system preferences and get accessibility set up. But from there, you should be able to do it. Okay, I just have to walk over here because the camera's going to follow me. This takes like 4 people to fold.
Last time we had to take it out and like figure out how to do it. And then you take this underneath it? No, it's,
On my,
you put it together or something like. The short end or something. You do it. He's gonna, because one of them is the other. Oh my goodness. And then you. Right? You're kidding me. Yeah. No, it's not.
We almost had it.
Cause it's not a
It's
circle.
gotta like, you gotta fold it.
It's like, it comes into like a complete
Yeah, like it
circle.
almost went in, you almost hit it.
oh, well, mine is you grab it with a U and then you like pull the 2 sides in.
It's like that short side.
Okay.
You grab the short side.
No, I didn't. I had it by the long side. It's the short side that you go in with a U.
Yes.
And then this should kick underneath.
Yeah.
There you go.
I knew it was the short.
Aren't I
side.
annoying?
No. I knew.
Okay. Anyone else need help? Okay. Last thing that we're going to touch on is a brand new feature that you only will have if you are up to date. So if you go to Apple and down to About This Mac, it will show you what OS operating system you're on. So if it says Ventura or 13, that means you are on the latest Mac operating system, and this will be an option for you. If you are not on that operating system, this will not be an option for you until you update to the latest one. The latest one is a free update. Recommend everyone do that this weekend, but if you are not up to date, I'm just going to show you this just so you know that it's a feature if you would like to turn it on. If you are, yes. What? You don't have to. It may cause you some issues down the line with developer tools not installing. That's fine. It shouldn't cause you any issues. But the security part of me has to say that you are opening yourself up to vulnerabilities by not updating. With that said, if you don't, there's no like hard requirement, it won't break things. But being on the latest operating system means it makes it easier for as a developer to have the latest tools and have everything updated there. But it's not a hard requirement to upgrade. I'm actually really disappointed. We order your laptops directly through Apple, and they are supposed to come updated. Supposed to, as in we paid $22,000 and did not get upgraded computers. Lesson learned for next cohort. But with that said, I am going to show you this feature. If you go to Apple and back into your system settings, under desktop and dock, there is a feature called Stage Manager. And this is for people who don't like the virtual desktop, don't like snapping, but only like to have one application, one window on their screen at a time. So in order to, what this does is if you turn this on and hit turn on Stage Manager, you will see only one window is on my screen right now. And if I go over to the left-hand side, I can see the other stages that I have access to, that I have open. So if I click on Chrome, that now brings that to the forefront, and I only have one application or one window running at a time. And if I open up a bunch of different applications, you can see over on the left-hand side, I will now have a bunch of different windows, a bunch of different stages open. And if I click on one of them, it will switch me over to that window. I cannot stand Stage Manager. I think as a developer, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you use Stage Manager. However, and the reason I say that, I know this is a very opinionated lecture right now. Thanks, Sharon. I don't like Stage Manager because as a developer, we're going to get to the point where you have like 15 windows open at the same time, and Stage Manager is going to make you get lost in those windows. So if this is something you really like, roll with it for now. If this is something that as we start juggling multiple windows, you find helps you, that's totally fine. But I am someone who uses virtual desktops and 3 fingers up to swipe and see all the windows that I have open. You can also switch between your windows using the dock. So if you click on Chrome, Chrome window will pop up. If you click on whatever VS Code, the VS Code window will pop up. So lots of different ways of switching between windows. If you're using Stage Manager, you totally can, that's fine. You can use 3 fingers to swipe up, see all of the windows that are open, use virtual desktops if you would like. Or if you are someone who just likes to have it all in one place and you switch through your windows that are open using the dock, that is also fine. There's one final thing that I'll show you. I'm going to turn off Stage Manager because, like I said, I cannot stand it. The last thing that I'll show you is if you, just like on Windows, if you hit Alt-Tab, that will bring up your application switcher. The same goes on the Mac. So if you hit Command-Tab, that will bring up all the applications that you have open. If you keep holding down Command and hit Tab again, you'll see the selection move over. And then when you let go of the command, it will switch you over to that window. Okay, so at this point, we open up the floor. If there are any Mac Power users, are there any features that I did not touch on that you think a beginner should know? Yeah. You don't have to use Chrome. When we start doing front-end web development, you'll find that the Chrome developer tools are much better than Safari's. And that is, I mean, Safari has developer tools, Firefox has developer tools. You'll see the developer tools that I'm using. And then if you want to go find them in Safari and use them, that's fine. Once we get past front-end development, it really doesn't matter what browser you use. But you will find the majority of developers use Chrome because their developer tools are just a step ahead. With that said, there are Firefox is a much better browser if you're concerned about privacy and security. Safari is also good at privacy and security. Safari's claim to fame is their battery life. Because it's made by Apple, Apple optimizes the software for the processors and the batteries and the computer and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are a Safari fan or a Firefox fan, that's totally fine. Like I said, for the first couple weeks of class, I would recommend following along in Chrome. And then after that, if you're not a Chrome fan or if you're a multi-browser fan, that's totally fine. I will also say there are some students who try to do the program on Windows. They may have like a gaming laptop or a desktop at home that they prefer. That is totally fine until you get to the backend and DevOps modules. The reason why we order Macs for you guys is not only are they the industry best hardware, but the operating system is based off of Linux. Linux is what runs the vast majority of web servers, including backend databases, stuff like that. So the commands that we're running on our Mac or that we'll be learning to run in our terminal will be the exact same commands that you will be running on a server if you ever deploy to that. So Postgres, Postgres. It's very similar. It's closest to MySQL, which is another popular variant that WordPress uses. And they're all in the same family, and they all, for the most part, use the same SQL commands. It was a toss up. I asked the instructors, like, do you prefer MySQL or Postgres? And most people were like, we kind of like Postgres more, but MySQL is also fine. MS SQL and Oracle are privately owned and require some licensing if you use their databases commercially. So that's why we use Postgres. MongoDB is a great question. Eva can actually attest to this. In the first cohort, we taught both MySQL and Mongo. But what we found was a lot of students were like, just tell me what to use for my capstone, right? Like I want to be, I want to have my skills honed in and feel more comfortable in one database as opposed to kind of spreading yourself a little too thin and using two of them. The reason why we teach SQL instead of Mongo is SQL is currently more used in industry than Mongo is. That shifts more and more every year. More and more companies do start using Mongo. But Mongo is not necessarily the better database. It depends on the use case. It depends what you're building. For your capstones, you won't be building anything at a scale enough where the differences between the two matter. But the question is not what is the better database. The question is what is the better database for the project that I am building. And 99 out of 100 times, the company that you're going into as a junior developer will already have that decision made for you, or it will be project specific. So the company may be using both, but it depends what product you're working on in that company. Docker is another can of worms that we tackled in cohort 1 and have not used since. Virtualization, that's kind of falling on the DevOps side of things. And Docker is a completely valid product, has a time and a place. We don't use it only because it adds in another learning curve. It's yet another thing to learn. With that said, Docker is a very valid thing, and Kubernetes is in that same family. So we don't touch that as part of our curriculum, but if you're leaning into DevOps, that's certainly something you can look into more, as we go.
It doesn't currently work for the M2 right now, that software anyway, so it wouldn't be good for us.
Docker is now fully compatible with Apple Silicon.
They just changed. They must have just changed it, huh?
Yeah, I've run a couple things. There may be specific Docker containers or images that are not compatible, but Mongo in particular, I do know is compatible with Apple Silicon now. Yes, and Macs are more stable than Windows and have a lot of things ironed out that Windows makes tricky, like drivers and stuff like that. But I'm an Apple fanboy, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Stainless steel. Actually, your models, I think, are aluminum. Oh. Gotcha. Okay, we are pretty close to break time, so let's go ahead and take our break. We'll be back at 7:15. When we come back, we're going to do a really quick breeze through project management. I think we're going to swap things here. So I'm going to give you guys an overview of Figma just so we have it. And then we'll use the rest of class time on working on your car wireframes and breaking out into groups. Any questions before we go on break? Yes, yeah. Yes. Safari and move them over. All right, head on break. We'll be back at 7:15. Roadblocked. So a roadblock, right, when you're out on the road means you can't keep going. There's something in your way. Road blocked. So you have your So you have your to-do, doing, done, and roadblocked, but it's really team specific, right? And so you may find on your team that you have a review column or a waiting on client, or it really is specific on the company. And then within your Kanban board, you have your cards, right? Those are not necessarily task level, but what you're trying to accomplish, right? So thinking about the car project, we may have some of those, we may break it down to the screen. So we're not going to say that we need to get every single icon into a card, but we may plan together and say, hey, you know what? We determined that there are 4 different screens that we need. We need the climate screen and the seat heater screen and the windshield defrost screen. And so that's what we're going to put in Trello and track our way over. And so when you start out your day, you can sit down and say, okay, before I do anything, is there anything in my board that I completed that is not up to date? So you always start on the right-hand side and work your way over. So you say, okay, there is something. I finished this yesterday. Let me put it into done. Then you say, all right, what's in my doing column? Before I commit to doing anything else, I should look in my doing column and see if there's anything in progress. Some people are pure believers that you should only ever be doing one thing at a time. And if it's already in progress, you should put it back into the to-do column if you're going to go work on something else. Some companies will say, hey, you know what, you're juggling 2 or 3 things at a time. That's fine. Just leave that in the doing column and go from there. So I am actually going to show you guys what the Trello board looks like for careers in code. So we use Trello, which is a software that is optimized for Kanban boards in particular. And you can see we've got a lot of breakdown into this Kanban board. So instead of just to do, doing, done, we have a backlog, we have approval, which is like, hey, these are tasks that we talked about. Then we go into an order breakdown. We have our in progress in their court. In other words, we sent something off, we're waiting to hear back from them. And then we have review and done as well. So you can see admissions decisions, we assign a date on that and have a task list inside of it. For something like Coworks memberships, you can see that this card is assigned directly to me. So I can know who's responsible for it. And I have an entire checklist to go down here and work on all of those items. So this is really powerful. You can see Jesse has left some comments for me. He can tag me right on this because we're working on this as a team. We can have our checklist in these cards. We can label things so we know how far into the program we should be doing it, what category it falls into. Kanban is a very organic solution. It really grows with your team. And if you're starting to work on a new team, there are often discussions that take place of, well, should this be another card, or should we be doing to-do list items inside of this? So if you guys are interested, you can head over to Trello.com and you will get a screen that looks like this, and you can say get Trello for free. You can go ahead and sign in with Google if you want. This is totally optional. But when you do, you're going to get into a new board. You can download it from the App Store, and the downloaded app and the web app are almost identical, so it doesn't matter which one you use, but can get it from the App Store, and they do have mobile apps as well. So I work on projects where I'm the only one working on the project, and I still make a Trello board for myself. Well, why do I do that? Because in Trello, I can set up my columns however I want. So I can say to do, doing, and done. There's my basic list. And now as I'm going, I can load this up. I can have my planning session and say, all right, what are all the things that I need to get done? Well, tonight we need to finish looking at Trello. We need to learn about Figma, and we need to break out into groups. And from that, I can go in there and start adding in a description, leave myself some notes. If I had multiple people working on this project, I can assign people to that so we can delegate. We also have a dates feature over here, so I can put a due date on this and even get a reminder. If I have the mobile app installed, I get a push notification or an email of when this task is due. I can even put a checklist on this item and break this down into separate tasks, right? So learn about Figma, hear Max talk, roll your eyes, check the clock. Not that any of you guys are doing that or anything. But when you're in here, you can even assign due dates to the separate items in the checklist, or assign that individual checklist item to someone else. So this is a great way when you're managing a bigger project to be able to go through here, leave yourself notes. And what's even better is when I wake up in the morning, when I go on my computer and I'm like, all right, what am I doing today? I don't need to go to my manager. I don't need to, I just go to Trello and I go, all right, where did I leave off? What are my comments? What's coming up due? You can even filter down the board to what may have a due date on it or what cards are assigned to you. So Trello next to Jira are the two most common project management tools out there. We like to expose you to this because as a software developer, if you're working in a team, 9 times out of 10, that team will have a project manager on it, and they will expect you to be interacting with some project management software. So Trello and Jira are the two biggest ones, Monday.com, Asana, blanking on a couple of the others, but all popular project management tools. We try and just expose you to this and keep the section as short as possible, just so that you guys know that that world is out there and that you're expected to interact with those tools once you get into the workplace. With that said, play around with Trello. And if you find that this is a helpful tool when we get to the capstones of keeping track of all of the resources that you're learning about, all the things that you need to do, definitely is a great tool that we encourage you to use. Yeah. Yeah, so what you would normally do is like, we're gonna move, finish looking at Trello to the done category. And then at the end of the sprint, which is normally a 2-week period, it depends, but you clean out the done list. So what you do is you pop it open, and then down at the bottom, there's an archive option, and you archive that card, and that will remove it from the list. And then if you really wanted to, you could delete it. You tend not to delete tasks, so you have an idea of what got accomplished in what time period. But that's just the general flow. Yep. Yeah, if you click on it, scroll down to the bottom, you can archive, and then after you archive it, there is an option to delete if you really want to get rid of it. Any questions about Trello? Okay. Yeah.
Why do you like Asana better?
Great question.
I don't like better. Asana is what we use. So I work for the city of Syracuse. I work in digital services, which is a brand new department, where we're trying to implement new digital applications, programs within the city's workforce. And I'm an assistant trainer, so I have to use Asana, and it's part of our department that they use Asana, and that's how we communicate what tasks are delegated to who, and it's a way of keeping tasks organized. I like it. I don't use it as much as I'm supposed to.
Shame.
I know, I'm terrible with it. I'm old school, like pen and paper, but with other consultants, we do use the Trello because they have a Trello account, so they assign us tasks to Trello. So I use both. I don't like Asana. Asana is way more complicated.
Last thing is like every company has their own way because
Yeah.
so you're gonna have to adapt to it. This is just a way to learn, so you know, if you go to a different company, they have their own name, they could have anything. You know, even Evernote, some companies, Evernote.
Yeah. And Asana and both Asana and Trello are free.
But is Trello like more, you know, like the standard or like most?
Most tech companies, I would say it would be.
Jira tends to be the biggest, especially with software development.
Jira is the elephant in the room, right? That's by far the biggest one. Trello is a little bit used more by like startups or smaller companies. I'm generalizing here. This is not a sweeping statement. Trello is by far my favorite. At my startup, we've used Monday.com, we've used Jira. It really is, it depends on the team. And sometimes you'll get into a team and they say, we use Trello, but this other team uses Jira. Sometimes you'll get in and it will be a company standard and they'll say, you have to use Trello. That's what all of our teams use. That's how we collaborate. Or you could get into a company and they could go, we don't have a project management tool. Do you think we should use one? So that is totally, totally plausible. What's that? Jira is actually a little bit more powerful than Trello. Jira is very database heavy. And Jira was specifically made for software engineering teams, as opposed to Trello, which is a little bit more broad for just general project management, planning, and tracking. So anyway, we just like to expose you to those tools. And if you want to play around with the other ones, you're more than welcome to create free accounts. Not all of them are free. So like Jira is free up to 10 users. And then if you have more than 10 users on your team, Jira also has a much steeper learning curve, right? So you saw me create cards, you got the general feel that you're like, all right, I can start using Trello, right? There are more things to learn about it, but for the most part, I get it. Jira is not as plug and play. There's a little bit more setup involved. There's a little bit more learning that you can do with it, but it is also a little bit more customizable where you can enforce certain standards across your whole team. So every tool is a little different. And there are reasons why there are multiple tools because it's personal preference. It kind of goes back to the database point, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that Trello is better than Jira. You may like Trello more than Jira or Jira more than Trello, depending on what project you're working on, if you're collaborating on teams, what features are built into it, all of that kind of stuff. And there was a great point in the chat of Trello seems helpful in planning and executing everyday projects. I have a Trello board for my house. And every time I get a quote from a contractor, I put that into a card. I can add my attachments in there. I have due dates on all of that stuff. It seems so ridiculous, but I plan my garden in Trello and know when I'm planting my seeds. And I am a huge Trello fanatic. So it is really helpful. And if you find that, hey, maybe I don't want to manage my capstone in Trello, but Max is throwing a lot of stuff at me. I've got homework assignments due. I have to remember when classes are. I may find a link that gets shared with me. I might want to remember that mouse. Trello could be a great place to just dump all of that information in, right? Because you can add comments, you can put yourself reminders and due dates in, you can add your subtasks in. So it is a really powerful software. And if you feel like you're using it and are like, I want a power session, like I'm overwhelmed. How do I even go about organizing all of this? Schedule a one-on-one with me. I'm happy to kind of show you around, show you how Hack Upstate uses their boards, how I use them personally. It is really a great tool, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone. And if you're someone who, you know, organizes better with paper and pencil or has a calendar, right, that they use, there's also no shame in that. Whatever organization system works for you, as long as you have some organization system, that's what really matters. Okay. With all of that said, I am going to skip this wireframing for now. I'm going to get you guys introduced to Figma. So if you would like the paid version of Figma for free, head to the daily outline, or I'm going to drop the link into the Zoom chat. You want to use that link because that will get you Figma for Education, which is essentially the paid version of it. If I remember correctly from last cohort, once you create your account, you have to go through like a verification step. And you have to fill out a form where you can just say like, I'm learning wireframing in my boot camp. I think there might be a drop down too, where you either have to pick our school, but head to that link. We're gonna roam around in person and make sure you guys can get your accounts created. And then virtually, if you need any help getting your account, created, just raise your hand in Zoom in the virtual raise hand, and we can screen share and help you get your account set up. What's that? You can pick student. Yes, student. Yes, for teaching and taking class for anyone remote. The use invite link for education license or in the Zoom chat, either one.
Okay. Right. Make Zoom little, it leaves this bar up here. I just close that.
Yes, you can.
Like I keep-
There might be, is there like a little box in this nav bar? Oh, over here. This is an education plan. New users will need to verify their education status. Okay, so once you get your account created, over on the right, in like the right side in the top right corner, there's a little like bluish gray box that says this user is for education. There's a little learn more button. Click on that learn more and then click the get verified button. And then when you fill that out, just say that you're a student and that you're learning to make wireframes. Once you get your account created, over in the top right-hand side of the Figma interface, there's a right here under that.
This one?
No,
Oh, sorry.
just go back a page. Click off so you're out of that nav bar. Right there is that learn more button.
Yes.
And then you can submit that form. You can say school not listed, careers in code, careersincode.org, computer science, and then your graduation date is September 2023. Yep. And then once you submit that form, you might get an email like tomorrow that says, congratulations, you're verified, and you'll be all set. Yeah, you're good. If you don't do that verification step, it like boots you out of your account after a couple days. So make sure you do that step.
So where the school name was it?
You can say school not listed and then type in careers and code in the box that pops up. So
Where are we applying for Figma?
you can just say like learning to make wireframes. So when I'm going to do this for the remote guys as well. Once you get your account created, give me a second. Why am I just signed in?
Graduation date you said.
Graduation date is September 2023.
You have been approved, so you can continue.
Once you get that approval, you are good to go. You're all caught up. So once you get your Figma account created for the remote team, Over here on the right-hand side, there's like a little blue box. I don't have it on my screen. But once you create your account, it should say like you need to verify your account and there's a learn more link. So you click on learn more, that's going to open in a new tab, and then you're going to hit the get verified button, which will be in like the bottom left-hand corner. And that's the format you're going to want to fill out. You can say school not listed and careers in code. Your graduation date is September 2023. And then why do you want it? For that question, you can just say like learning to make wireframes. Hit the submit button, and then it should say you are verified and you should be good to go. And if anyone is stuck remotely, just raise your hand in Zoom in that feature, and you can share your screen and we can help you through it. Sorry, I can't show you step by step because my account's already verified, but this will get you access to Figma for the course of the program. Everyone, one more minute, and then we will dive into learning a little bit of Figma. It doesn't really matter what you put in, just yeah. Our website is careersincode.org. In case you didn't. And then the bottom is okay, anyone need help before we keep going? Okay, so we are going to everyone can create a new design file. And up at the top, it's going to say untitled. So you can go ahead and change that. I'm going to say playground, and then I'm going to put my name up there just so we have that saved. And now we get to this interface and we're kind of like, okay, now what? Well, I'm going to show you a couple steps here of how we can use Figma. But if you are really interested in this, if you're like, yeah, man, I want to learn more about this well after tonight, in the daily outline, I have 2 links in here. One is an intro to Figma. It's a 24-minute video. That's really going to give you the perspective of a designer using this software, showing you around, kind of doing an in-depth dive. Don't worry, I'm not going to force you to sit through a 24-minute video, but if you are curious about that, you can check that out. And there is also a 2-hour Figma course, which may sound like a lot, but if you are really interested in UI design, Figma or other tools like it are going to be a great thing to learn how to use right. Figma is one of those things that you can kind of puzzle piece it together and figure out as you go. But if you learn it the way that Figma intends you to use it, it becomes a much more powerful software. With that said, I have put some common wireframing, mockup, and prototype tools down here in the outline in case you're curious about learning more about them. We'll be using diagrams.net a little bit later on in the course to make a diagram. Whiteboard and notebook, right? Old school, go pen and paper. Mockup tools, we're going to be learning Figma. Sketch is a really popular one. Miro, Canva, Photoshop, and Illustrator are a little bit old school. And then the prototyping tool that I could not remember yesterday is InVision. InVision was like the go-to. It was one of the first major prototyping tools. Sketch and Figma have now largely caught up to the features that are in InVision. So it's not as much of a requirement anymore. But if you go through that 2-hour Figma course, they're going to teach you all about prototyping and how to design a mockup properly. With all of that said, we're going to get started. Before we drag anything out, what we want to do is create a frame. And the frame's what's going to hold everything. So if we were designing multiple different screens, we would have multiple frames on our canvas. So I'm going to go to frame. I'm gonna go over to desktop and I'm gonna pick the MacBook Pro 16-inch. That's gonna be the closest screen size that we're designing for our car. So I'm gonna pick that MacBook Pro and I get this white square. From here, we can use a bunch of different shapes to start laying out what we want our wireframe or ultimately our mock-up to look like. Now, some teams will kind of skip the wireframe step and go right into a mock-up. We're going to kind of blur the lines between them. So if you want to go just a traditional wireframe and just do black and white, that's totally fine. If you want to kind of push the bounds and explore with color a little bit, we can also do that. Yes. Okay. Can you hit the light? Do you guys have a share button in the top right? So if you are on this home screen, there should be something that says new design file. If you see new design file, go ahead and click on that. If you are already in the file and you just see this gray blob going on, what we do is we go up to this frame tool, which is to the right of the blue button. And that's going to open up this little sidebar over here on the right. We're going to go to the desktop dropdown and then go down to the MacBook Pro 16 and click on that.
Does it matter if the back of mine is black? Like, does that matter?
That's fine. You might be in light mode or dark mode, still all the same layout and buttons and all that stuff. That's totally fine. Give it about 20 minutes and mine will switch to night mode as well. So you click on the frames, you click on desktop, and then you click on MacBook Pro 16. That's what's going to give you your frame to work on.
It's the little square at the top.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. Look here.
Okay, from here, you can adjust your zoom in the top right. If you can't see everything or you want to zoom in or out, up in the top right here, there will be your zoom. You can shrink it down as you're working with it. So yes, it's fine to shrink it down below 100. Okay, everyone good? Okay, from here, we can start playing around with different shapes. So I'm thinking about our car interface and I'm thinking about, hey, we've got this dock down here on our Mac, right? And I feel like that's a pretty good starting place for us to say, yeah, on our car, we should be able to switch between different options. So we're going to put a switcher bar with different icons at the bottom of our screen. So to do that, I'm going to go up to this third or fourth shape, the rectangle without the, right next to the frame tool. And I'm going to go down to rectangle. Now in my interface, I can draw out a rectangle at the bottom of my screen. From here, I'm going to now go to my text tool. And I'm going to draw a little box down in my new gray area.
Same thing. A small box.
Yep, a small box.
From like a rectangle.
Yep. Just make sure it's a text box.
Wait.
Yep, you got it. And then you can draw it. My God, that projector really sucks.
Projector?
Yeah, it's terrible. If it will let me.
Yeah. Not better.
So the tools that we've used so far, we've used our frame tool to get our white square to show up. We used our rectangle tool to draw out this gray area. And then we've also used the text tool, to draw a box kind of on top of the rectangle that we drew.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot.
How do I, once I draw the box in there, how do I lock it? Because it keeps like disappearing.
So
Like how you just did that, like how do I lock it so it stays there?
So if you go to the rectangle and just draw it out, it should, if you like click off in the background, it should stay there.
And then once I use the text and I draw the square inside or the rectangle inside of that box.
Yep. Yeah, just one for now. Yep. I just drew the text box there.
Okay, and then when I click like back to, let's say like the rectangle, yeah, it just like how do I lock it so that when I go, like I don't have to keep drawing it there, I guess.
So we haven't put anything inside that text box yet, which is probably why it's not staying there.
Okay.
So that's the next step we're going to do. We're actually going to put an emoji in that text box to represent an icon. So to get to the emoji picker on your Mac, and this goes for any application you're in, you're going to hit Control, Command, and Space. Control, Command, Space is going to pop up your emoji picker. From there, we are going to do a search. I'm going to use the music icon. So I'm going to pick that music icon and it disappears and it is super tiny. We can probably barely see it in there. What we can do is over here on the text area, we're going to change the 12 here to a much bigger size. Let's say 300. You might have to select the text first or the icon first. Okay, 200, 100, 100 is a good size. So you can click on the little text icon over here. That's going to select it. Or you can click on the text box over on the right-hand side under design, under text. We're going to change that to 100. That's fine to be out of the box. You can resize the box so it fits. And you can also use pinch to zoom and 2 fingers to pan around. So if you use 2 fingers, you can kind of pinch out and see the whole document. And you can use 2 fingers, not only left and right, but up and down to scroll around the interface. How are we feeling remote? Does anyone need help?
Like hidden behind the gray box.
Okay, so we can fix that by taking this rectangle 2 and dragging it down so it's underneath the music note. Anyone else need help?
Undo.
Oh, I like unicorns. Double click into the text box. And because it's text, you can just hit the delete button. And now control command space. And you can do a search for music, and then that will be in there instead. After you click on the icon. Okay, so this is where we start to dive into, all right, how do we build our interface, right? Well, let's go back to that document from yesterday. Let's go back to our requirements gathering session. We said that we are going to break out into 5 teams here, right? Persistent status, car settings, media music, navigation, and climate. So let's practice with that a little bit. We're going to go back to Figma. We already have our music note. So that's our music. Now I could go back up to the text box and make a new one, but then I have to go through all the sizing information again. Instead, I'm going to select the text note, or the text box. So I have that selected. I'm going to hit Command C to copy it, Command not Control. And then I'm going to hit Command V. And it looks like nothing happened, but notice over here, now I have 2 music notes. Well, if I take this and drag it over, I now see my copied music note. Click on the first music note, Command C to copy it, Command V to paste it, and then grab that music note and drag and drop it over a little bit more. So if you've got 2 music notes going, you're doing all right. Command C to copy, and then Command V to paste it. And it's not going to look like the paste worked, but if you grab that music note and drag it over, you're going to see both of them show up. Okay, now we don't need 2 music notes. We need the settings icon. So I'm going to double click into that text box, make sure my music note is highlighted, then hit Control Command Space again and do a search for a gear. And I'm going to click on my gear, and we will find that now I've got my gear icon showing up. So we're going to keep repeating that process. We're going to do another one for maps.
Wait, so how will the copy and paste them?
Click on the item, Command C to copy it, Command V to paste it, and then drag it over so you can see the other item.
Control, command, space.
We're going to do 4 of them total. Music, a gear, a map, and a thermometer. And if they aren't aligned perfectly, that's okay. We're just getting started with our layout. Thermometer, temperature. Yeah, that's fine.
They're your items.
Anyone need help? Yep.
How do I highlight it? That's.
Yeah, so I find it easier if you like click into the box,
Okay.
then it's highlighted. And so now when we pick another one, like the gear, it will replace the one that's in there. Yeah, pretend like it's text, like drag it over to highlight it. There you go.
Yeah, so what you do is you just slide it over.
I'm sure it's not official.
Like lots. I didn't want it. Inside that, that's fine. Single, it should like snap. Like instantly.
Double click. Now it's highlighted. Yes.
Well, you've got to highlight it.
If you double click on the thing.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Double click. That has it highlighted. Sometimes it's easier to delete it.
Okay.
And then we can go back in and pick temperature. And there it is.
Okay, perfect, man.
So I didn't mask. I'm not really sure what I did, but it took the Windows 2.
Command Z to edit undo.
So I looked at. Boy, I was. There we go. Okay. Thank you. We were learning.
Okay, how are we feeling? And this will all be on YouTube, so you can relive all of this. If you're curious, if you're stuck somewhere.
What is the feather?
It's music, gear for settings, map, and then you can do a fan or a thermometer or whatever your heart is feeling.
All right.
So, okay, Command C, Command V. Now drag that over. Now double click to get into text edit mode. Now Control Command Space. Try again. You broke it.
That's par.
Oh, I can't do it. Sorry. Okay, let's try this. Sometimes full screen wreaks havoc. There it is.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now you should be able to pick one. There you go. Yeah, sometimes because it's like a pop-up window, it doesn't show in the right spot. So if you like swipe over and then swipe back, that brings it up. Okay, how are we feeling? Remote team, we doing good? We got our 4 icons. Anyone need a step repeated? Cool.
I have-
Okay. Oh
I-
yeah, go for it.
So according to Figma, I have the icons there, but for some reason I can't get them to show, and it's like driving me crazy right now.
So you might have this out of the wrong order. So if you look over on the left-hand side, for example, if your rectangle 1 is at the top of the list, well, all of my icons are here, but now I put my rectangle on top of my icons. So if I drag my rectangle 1 down the list, that makes the icon show up. By any chance, is that your problem, or is there a different, or did that not fix it?
No, I have them in the right order. I feel like it's like something with it being opaque or something, or maybe the color, but I have everything in the right order.
Let's try this. Click on one of your icons Over on the right-hand side, is your text set to 100?
It is.
Okay, what I'm gonna ask you to do is share your screen and we can take a look together.
Okay, hold on a second.
If you can share your screen, depending on what device you're on.
There, move. Thank you.
So in Zoom, and this is a good lesson, everyone will be doing this at some point, down in the bottom of the Zoom screen, there should be a green share screen button.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that. It's just that when I start talking to you, I literally started to delete them to start over from the beginning. So let me just do the steps over
Okay,
and let's see how that goes before I share.
sure.
It's okay. Thank you.
This all gets more comfortable over time. Don't worry. This is the other, we'll learn VS Code on Monday. And then other than that, we don't really learn anything new. It's all code based from there on out, but we like to introduce you to these tools. All right. So if we're thinking about our car screen a little bit, I'm looking at our requirements, right? And we had car settings, media and music, navigation, and climate. I feel like we've got all of those represented. What's the one that we forgot about? Persistent status. Well, I don't want a status icon to really show up on my screen. That should always be showing up, right? So what I'm thinking is, all right, let's think about a car interface. We've got 15 inches or 16 inches of screen to work with here. I feel like we could probably afford to split the screen a little bit and have whatever information is on the right side of the screen be whatever app we have selected here, and whatever's on the left side of the screen be the persistent information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to the rectangle, and instead of using rectangle, I'm going to use the line tool instead. So I'm going to grab that line tool and I'm going to go about roughly 1/3 of the way into the screen, and I'm going to draw a line down. Now you may be able to get it perfectly straight, but if you hold in the Shift key, it will force it into a straight line. And you can see Figma is trying to help me there. It's kind of snapping it right to that bottom bar. So I'm going to let go of that. And now I've got a little line showing up. Kind of between the music and the gear, or about 1/3 of the way into the screen. It's probably even easier to see on the screen share, but it's this line right here we drew from the top down to the bottom. And if you hold in the Shift key while you're drawing it, it will make that line straight for you. Anyone need help? Okay, now we're going in here, we're making all of this by hand, right? And making things by hand is great. And if you're a designer, you are used to working with colors or different items, but we can also work with pre-built component libraries. And that component library not only goes for Figma, but we'll be using that same component library when we dive into our code. The framework and the components that we'll be using is a very popular framework called Bootstrap, B-O-O-T-S-T-R-A-P. And the idea is that they pull you up by your bootstraps, right? They get you going with pre-built components. So in the daily outline, I hope I have linked to Bootstrap 5 components. I will also drop that link into the chat. If you pop open that link, it should open in a new tab. So up at the top, you can see we've got our playground here, but we also have our Bootstrap UI kit open. I dropped the link. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not drop the link in the Zoom chat. And it's also in the C5 daily outlines under Bootstrap 5 components. Now, this looks super tiny, but if we go, I'm going to use 2 fingers to scroll over. And I'm going to zoom into the input group screen. And what I'm going to do is I like this recipient's username. So I'm going to double click on, oh, tell me that's not that. Hold on. That's not going to do what I want. Give me 1 second.
You guys scroll out of it.
No, that's not the problem. I literally picked the only one that has WIP over here. Does anyone know what WIP stands for? Work in progress. Bad example. Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can do it another way. Okay, so over on the left-hand side, there is this pages section. We're going to go to the components instead. And in the components, we have buttons, badges, and form inputs. I'm going to zoom in on the form inputs, and I've got this thing that says placeholder. And this is supposed to be showing us like all the different text inputs that we could pick. So I'm going to double click until I get that purple box around placeholder. Open the link in the Zoom chat. Okay, once I have that selected, I'm going to hit Command C to copy it. I'm going to go all the way back over to my playground where I already have my icon showing up. And I'm going to hit Command V and paste it. Yep. So we're in here. I'm in my components page over on the left-hand side. I have zoomed into my form inputs over here. I double click on this placeholder until I get a purple selection around it, or red, just something showing me that I've got it selected. I am then going to hit Command C to copy it. I'm going to switch over to my playground where I have my icons, and I'm going to hit Command V to paste it. Now, if I want to, I can grab that and drag it up so it's a little bit bigger, or I can zoom into it and double click until I get to that placeholder. So if I keep on double clicking over and over again, eventually I'll be able to select my text. So I could enter something in there, like enter an address. And now we have our first little form input showing up. If you've gotten to enter an address, this is where we're going to stop for the evening. So if you want to play around, look around in the Bootstrap UI kit. Look in the components, kind of see what some of your options are here. There are buttons, there are badges, there are form inputs. And then if you go over to the UI kit, you can find more stuff like cards. So you can practice copying some of these items and pasting them into your own file and play around with laying out an interface. That's it. That's all we've got for the evening. I'm going to stick around and help you guys catch up. But as long as you got one component from this Bootstrap kit showing up in Figma, you are good to go. We are at Common Space tomorrow, arrive at 5:45 for a tour, and then we'll be at Open Hack from 6 o'clock until 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish. If you have any questions, hit me up in Slack or let me know now and I can walk you guys through these steps. I'm gonna do it one more time on the screen. I'm gonna use the card as an example. So I'm gonna double click until I get the item that I want. And I'm gonna hit Command C. I'm then gonna go back over to my Figma, click where I want the icon or the item to be and hit Command V, and I can paste in that entire component.
Into that page that you created, that whole.
If anyone remotely needs help, raise your hand. I'm just walking around the room. I'll be back for you guys. Virtually raise your hand in Zoom. If you're remote.
I'm not surprised.
Okay,
Okay, so what do we do now?
yes. So I'm gonna click off everything because we got about 19 people.
Yeah, my God.
I'm gonna use this one down
Okay.
here. So I'm gonna single click on that. And am I? Okay, so that's selected.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit Command C to copy it.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna go over to this
I couldn't figure
and
out.
paste it.
You click up here.
It's a second tab. There's pesky little tabs. You're good. You might want to practice with like another card component or a button or something like that, but other than that, you're good to go. I'm gonna turn on the lights just so we can see each other. Lights warning. Is that yours?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I get some input and then the components and then
Yep.
everything just started moving.
Okay, so we're gonna just pick this random one down here. So I'm gonna click on it and that means it's selected. I'm gonna copy it. Then I'm gonna switch back over to your file that you've got going on and hit Command V. No, we're not. Pick, copy, over here. What the?
Just highlight it and then.
You've broken everything. Okay, hold on.
Oh my gosh.
There we go. Okay. You were in some weird mode. I hit done up here and it got you out of it. So we can practice that with like, hey, maybe we want like a label with a radio button. So we can copy that, come back over here and hit paste. And now there's, well, it didn't bring the radio button over with us. Go get that too. Pick that, copy, come back over, hit paste, and you would drag that into place and there's your little radio button. Well, okay, that was a really bad example. Let's, I'm gonna go to the UI kit and we can like zoom in on one of these and take like this entire card. So we'll copy that, come over here, we'll paste it, and there's your whole card that you could lay out wherever you want it.
Thank you.
Upstate. They're also linked in Campus. See you tomorrow. Common Space downtown. 5:45. Rain, what's going on? You there, Rain? You guys are good to go for the evening once you've played around with Figma a little bit. We'll pick up there on Monday. Yeah, no problem. Have a good night, everyone in person. And I'm here, Rain, if you still need help, let me know.
Nice.
Hey, Max, did you alert me yet? I had to step away.
Yes, yeah,
I
no
do.
problem.
I apologize. I have a 1-year-old. Thank you for your
It
patience.
happens, no big deal. Go ahead
So,
and share the screen, let's take a look.
okay, yeah, let me share it. All right, and desktop 1.
Okay,
Awesome. So,
okay, so you've got your frame created. So go ahead and like pinch into that area to zoom in on the MacBook Pro.
but
That
hold
white
on,
area.
hold on 1 second. Literally, I've been pressing frame and it would not allow me to add it. I know I had the issue with the trackpad, and now that I've clicked back on it with you on the screen, of course it's going to work. So I need to know exactly how that works. So if you don't
Okay.
mind, I want to
Yeah.
just create it.
I'm gonna request remote control. Oh, or you can do it too. Go ahead and click on that frame button.
Yeah, so I went here.
Yep,
I did
and hit frame.
my frame. I did 16-inch.
Yep.
Okay.
And then don't resize that. Just pinch to zoom in.
Okay, so pinch to zoom in.
There you go.
Awesome sauce.
Perfect.
Okay, move it
Okay,
up a
then
little
from
bit.
here, we added our like rectangle at the bottom of the screen, right?
We did. So I press R, and then I
Okay.
went ahead. I went down here.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. So then from there, I went to text.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did a little box, like you said. Hold on 1
Mhm.
second. If I can get in there.
I think it will expand as we do the text. So if you just hit Control, Command, and Space and pick your music icon.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. Okay, and 2 fingers.
Nope, not 2 fingers on that one. So that your text box disappeared because we didn't have anything in it. So go back up to your text box. Go ahead
Okay.
and drag that out.
Okay.
Okay, Control, Command, Space.
Control what space?
Control, Command, Space for your
Okay.
emoji picker. Okay, now anytime we're clicking on, unless it's a right click, it's only 1 finger on the trackpad. We're gonna double click on the music icon.
Okay, I double clicked with 1 finger.
Okay, let me try. I'm gonna request remote control just so I can see what happens on my side.
Okay.
Because that shouldn't have happened.
And then earlier when I was doing the same thing, it was showing that the musical note was there and the text field, it just wasn't showing.
So hit Control, Command, Space for me because I can't do that with remote control. And if we just pick them,
You see what I mean? So I'm
okay,
like,
well, you're not crazy if that makes you feel any better.
yeah, okay, that's a good thing.
I have no. Okay, let's try this. We're gonna like close out of it
Okay.
and we're gonna just reopen it. Oh, you know what it might be? Figma doesn't, the emoji picker doesn't like working in full screen mode. So I just took you out of full screen.
Okay.
Let's reopen it and we're gonna do our text box again and go ahead and hit Control, Command, Space. And now we're gonna pick our music icon. Motherfucker.
Yeah, I did it like 8 times. So do you think it's the color? Perhaps I played with the color, to be honest with you, and it didn't do anything.
Okay, well, let's try.
Oh, you want to do like a Command C, Command V?
That's what I'm gonna try because I
Okay.
don't know why that's not working otherwise. Okay, well, apparently the Command C, Command V worked. And then we can just make this, 100 and we can actually see it and position things the way we want. I really have no idea why it's doing that to you. Here, let's try this. If we just go to like google.com and try Control Command Space there. And pick any icon. And it didn't insert it there either.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one place I can look in your,
You know,
system
I was playing around with settings earlier because of my trackpad issue. I possibly could have done something, perhaps.
This one I like to turn off.
Okay.
This is fine, that's normal. Tap to click is normal. This one I turn off. This, well, I can't see it. I can't imagine why that would cause a problem.
Right.
You didn't do anything in like accessibility, did you?
No, only time I've touched accessibility was last night when you told me to click on something and I can't remember what it
Yeah,
was.
to turn on Zoom screen share.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was
Um,
it.
I would say reboot your computer. I don't think that's a trackpad issue because like, even with me screen sharing it, right? Like there's nothing wrong with my trackpad and I still can't get that to work. So that's the only thing I can think of is that like your computer just needs a reboot and then you would be okay.
Okay. I will try that. If it doesn't work, then maybe we can just, you know, pick up from this tomorrow, perhaps, I guess. I don't know.
If it doesn't work, I'm gonna send you my Calendly link and you can just book a time with me. I will be booked like tomorrow during Open Hack. But I've got times during the day and the weekend and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
try and grab a time there if the reboot doesn't work. And we'll work together to try and figure it out.
I appreciate it. Now with the with going to 351 South Warren, if I'm not mistaken, that's the
Mhm.
address.
Mhm.
That's where our class will be held tomorrow, or we're still
Kind
having a
of.
virtual option.
That's a really good question, and I'll post that as a note in Slack. We will be attending Open Hack instead of class tomorrow.
Okay.
So if you can't make it in person to the tour and Open Hack at 5:45 and 6, you do not need to sign in. We won't take attendance and we'll just pick class up on Monday.
Okay. All right then. So Calendly, I'll be looking out for that, and I thank you for your time.
I just sent it to you in Zoom. I'll also send it to you in Slack only because once we leave the meeting, the Zoom chat goes away. So you should have.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, cool.
Zoom doesn't open because you're sharing your screen. If you switch over to Slack.
Oh, you see me struggling. Okay, go to Slack. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Slack. No, this is Canvas. Excuse me.
Slack you have down in your doc.
Okay.
Yep. And then over on the left-hand side, you see Max with the 1 there. And then if you click on that, there's my link.
Awesome. Okay, I'll schedule an appointment.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.
Hi, Max. So just a quick question. I left and I was gonna exit out of the Figma that I just created. I'm wondering, does it auto save or is there like
It
a button?
does.
It does. Okay, perfect. I was a little bit scared. I'm like, I don't have to redo everything again. All right, I'm all set. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good night. Thanks for waiting.
Bye-bye.